everybody for joining me in Dirty Wheels. I'm here riding along Stephanie McMillan, from Team F&G. We're going to pick her brain today about her business, nutrition, and mountain biking. Thank you, Stephanie, for joining me again, round two.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Perfect. How's it going? What's new since I talked to you last?
Oh man, went on vacation, took my family on a mountain biking ride, their first ever mountain biking ride. So that was really cool. Started a new training for a new job, like just, life busy as always. So
yeah,
otherwise
nice.
good.
Good. That's good. So
Yeah,
where
how about you?
Good. I'm doing good. Same thing. My bike season has officially started, so I'm coaching 5 shifts a week and trying to keep up with branding, which is a lot. I think I have ADHD as an adult, and so this helps my like mellowing. I need stuff to do all the time, so this is great. But yeah, so where'd you take your family mountain biking?
Well, they live in Indiana. They flew into Vegas and we went to Zion National Park and I live in Phoenix, so I drove up and met them. Obviously I brought my bike. I was like, I'm not going to Virgin, Utah and that area of the US and not taking my bike.
Yeah.
And then I was going to take them riding in Vegas because we spent the other half of our time in Vegas, but I was like, man, I really just think that this would be a better area and that they'd have more fun. And if I could trick them and make their first ride a shuttle where they're not pedaling a lot.
Oh, that's great.
And I thought it'd be easier to find a shuttle. So actually, I found an awesome company called Wild Mesa. You should actually reach out to her. It's a female-owned. Yeah, she was great, man. She met us at the trailhead. We just hopped in her truck with the bikes, went up to the top and rode down and met her at the bottom of the trailhead. My family didn't want to go on another lap because they were tired, obviously, we had stuff we wanted. It took I went on a second lap. It took me like 15 minutes to get down, but it took just like an hour to get down with my family.
Well, that's cool that they were like adventurous enough to go do it with you. That's right.
Absolutely. Well, my niece and nephew, they're both in high school and they're both athletic. So, they were naturally like, yeah, let's go do that. Absolutely. I think my sister was a little nervous. She's had a bad experience going downhill on a bike before at a park, but I was like, you were on a crappy bike. Nobody taught you like how to. I fell the first time I went downhill on a bike too, because I was sitting on the seat, like riding down like a clown, like, stand up. You can get hurt. So we did a little skills session and then took them out and they had a really good time. They actually all said it was their favorite part of the whole vacation.
See, mountain biking really does help people. It's truly an awesome thing. Love that your family had a nice vacation. Tell me a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and how you got into mountain biking.
Sure. Yeah. I grew up in the Midwest and actually had a funny conversation with a friend. I'm from the corn Midwest, not the city, Chicago Midwest. So Indiana. Left Indiana in 2014 to do travel nursing and really started getting into hiking and exploring like national parks. And I've always been adventurous, like sports, and, I've always been an athlete. Was a trail running for a long time.
Oh, wow.
Moved to Arizona, started dating my boyfriend, and he mountain bikes. And he is like he's like, I would watch him and be scared. I'd be like, I don't ever want to do that. I mean, now I do, but I would look at first had no desire, it's like I'm going to die. So he got me into it and I really started doing it just for something that we could do together. Yeah, I didn't hate it, but I definitely did not love it. I was like in the couch all day after a short ride.
Oh, totally.
Sore for days, it would just eat up my whole day. And I didn't really love that aspect of it. But once I figured out how to integrate it a little bit better with my lifestyle, and once I like unlocked a mindset piece of it, that's when I really got addicted.
Yeah. It's all about the mindset, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I was deep in bodybuilding before I started mountain biking. Like they kind of started around the same time for me. And I was after bodybuilding, I was trying to like move away from it. I recognized it wasn't necessarily great for my relationship with food or my hormone health, or
Yeah.
lot of things. Was trying to, I really, really love that like mentally challenging aspect of it. Like how far can
Totally.
I push myself? What am I
Yeah.
capable of?
Yeah.
That was the part I loved about it. And once I realized I could do that with mountain biking, I was like, oh wait, I can just sub in mountain biking and get that same challenge
Yeah.
and not like screw up my relationship with food and
Totally. That it's like an adrenaline. You're an adrenaline junkie. You like need that. Yeah.
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 Well, and
Same.
I just like pushing the boundaries, you know,
Totally.
like what else are we here for?
Right. Adventure.
Yeah.
That's interesting that you brought up, your body and how that affected you. I just listened to a podcast this morning, and it was about women and their relationship with food and how some women, even though they work out and they're fit, they look good, they still feel like food is like the enemy and they don't want to overeat. But it's funny that in mountain biking, you kind of have to up those calories or else you're not going to perform or even get through your ride. And so I think that's really interesting that bodybuilding, how did that affect you and how did you change that in your mountain biking?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, really the only reason it affected my relationship with food is because the amount of extreme restriction that you have to go to get to such a low body fat percentage when you step on stage, you know.
Yeah.
I don't think that like the idea of bodybuilding as a whole is necessarily a negative sport. I don't think it's going to give people eating disorders, things like that. But I was always somebody who was like, I could never have an eating disorder. I love food too much. Like,
Totally.
I love food. I think that's why a lot of people go into bodybuilding actually, because they want to gain some type of control over something that they love so much that maybe they don't feel in control of all the time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you take it to an extreme and then you're doing really well with that extreme, but then you come out of it and you realize, okay, I had so much control over it, and now I feel way out of control with it.
Totally. Yeah.
And I was like binging. I was just eating so much food, and luckily I never got into the point where I was, purging or having any other eating disorder type of things. But I saw some red flags, and I was like, oh, this is something that I need to be careful with. And if I continue with this sport, I could see myself developing some issues, or like that's a slippery slope. So that was part of why I decided to back away from it. And also I feel like it took me a full year for my hormones to really fully recover.
Holy cow. Yeah.
For me to feel normal again and my hormone. And I don't even have, maybe TMI. I don't know who your listeners are if they're mostly female. I have a Mirena, so I don't even have periods or like fully feel like a cycle like a lot of women do.
Yeah, same.
And I still felt off for a year afterwards. So just, getting down to like 10% body fat is
so you wouldn't have had a period anyway.
I probably would have lost my period had I had one going into that, which a lot of competitors do.
Yeah.
And the bodybuilding can be done like somewhat safely. Obviously there's risks in anything, and taking anything to extremes like that. It's just like mountain biking. Like you could break your leg, obviously, That's different. But a lot of people don't take time to recover between shows, and they just like do back to back to back to back. And that's where you're not giving your hormones a chance to fully return to that happy state and get back to where you need to be. And you're constantly in that like low body fat, which body fat is what supports our hormone health. So
well, and it's like, how do you stay happy in that situation? Like if you're always constantly worried about what you're eating, are you going to do that even when you're not competing? Probably, because you want to get back into competition fitness even though you don't need to. I've seen that happen. I met a lady one day, and she was about to go to a competition from Durango, and they were traveling to LA. And I asked her what she wanted for lunch because I worked in a restaurant at the time. And she was like, oh, I can't eat anything for the next 4 days. I'm only drinking iced tea. And I was like, what? But you're going to a body competition.
See, that's the scary part about that sport too, is there's so many, it's just like the online health world, right? There's so many people out there who don't really know what they're talking about or aren't giving good advice. And like, no, I ate the day of my show. You have to eat. Like I'm eating. I was actually looking forward to show day because I was getting a Reese's backstage, and like you have to pump up before you get on stage. So I was getting like lots of nut butter, and like I was eating more on show day than I had leading up to it. But
wow.
I didn't restrict like sodium or water, or like I didn't ever go under 1,000 calories, but that's still incredibly low.
Yeah.
For my body size and weight, you know, for anybody really, for a toddler, that's incredibly low. So
I know. I don't think I could live off of that.
you know, and that was part of it. It wasn't a long-term thing. It was for a specific goal for a short-term period, and it was a cool experience. I'm glad I did it. But it did, like, I couldn't mountain bike. So I had started mountain biking right when I was prepping for my first show. Okay. And I remember my coach being like, you can't be mountain biking because you can't be getting, like, that's not going to tan. You're like, if you fall and like scrape up your leg, you're going to go on stage on your bikini with like road rash on your leg, or like, you know, she's like, you can't for 8 weeks before your show because you need everything to heal. Wow. So I think that's why my boyfriend didn't like me competing. Right.
Well, I think that's unfair too. Like maybe that's like an alternative sport for you to take a break from bodybuilding. So that does suck. I mean, I can understand what she's saying, but
for sure, I get it. Well, and it's like, what am I gonna work so hard for months and then get injured and not be able to compete? And then but I you know, all that being said, if I were to ever do it again, which I'm never say never, but I don't think I would.
Yeah.
I would not stop mountain biking. I would just be like, nah, I'm using mountain biking as my cardio. And if that impacts me being on stage, so be it. I'm doing it for fun. Like last time I was doing it to win. I was champion mindset. Like I was grinding.
So did you win?
My first show I'm like, oh, I have my medals over there. I got first in my I competed in 3 different classes in my first show.
Okay.
I got first in 2 of the classes and second overall. And then my second show was a bigger show. It was in Vegas, and I got 4th overall. But I was really proud of that because it was a much more competitive stage, you know.
You got to send some pictures. You're like posing and
oh, I will. You'll be like, what? Because you know, hair, makeup, glam, and like
and the tan, everything.
Yeah, and that's not me anyways. Like that was I almost literally, girl, when because I was borrowing my coach's swimsuit because she was a friend of mine too.
Oh, that's fun.
And so I didn't see the suit until the day before we went on my competition, right? And she hands it to me, and I'm like, this is a thong. And she's like, yeah. And I was like, I almost didn't do it. I was like, I almost quit. I was like, I didn't know my ass was going to be out. Like, I was super uncomfortable because that's just not me. I mean, which is funny because, you know, that's bathing suits these days. Like, but
I know they're all string bikinis or like
but I just
triangles.
Not me. So like I personally was very uncomfortable, and it was an interesting experience, but I grew a lot from it.
That's cool.
But I did it.
So you're into bodybuilding. You're now mountain biking. How did you get into deciding you were a nurse? You said that you were a traveling nurse. Mm-hmm. How did you mesh all of those together for yourself?
Yeah.
And make it a passion and a business?
Yeah, really, it was the 3 things combined. As a nurse, I was like sick and tired of seeing people sick and tired and not necessarily like because of diseases that aren't preventable. It was like preventable things, you know, that's the frustrating part. People's health being super poor, and it's because of lifestyle choices. So when I first started my coaching business, I really was focusing on overall health, really preventative health, trying to keep people out of the hospital, just teach people how to be healthier and live a fuller lifestyle. But I really found that I as I started working with more athletes, I found that I really enjoyed working with athletes, especially mountain bikers. So I just started shifting towards mountain bikers. I also started noticing a trend of these women who are athletic as fuck. They're out on the trails. They're doing all these sports. They're capable. They're strong. They're not strength training as well. And I was like, what the heck? And then I was finding out too, like they weren't eating great protein, having great protein intake or like good fiber, that, you know, not a lot of direction with in nutrition, and would be on rides and see people eating things like nuts and trail mix, which is fine, right? Like I'm not fed is best. Like rather you eat a snack than not have any snack at all.
Well, and it's like mostly fats that you're eating.
Exactly.
With, like,
However, I know that you're going to feel a hell of a lot better if you're eating carbs on the trail versus eating fats, and you're going to probably have better energy levels. So really just from spending time with mountain bikers, noticing that gap of like them not having the nutrition and strength training pieces to help supplement their riding and help them just have more fun and feel better on the trails.
Totally.
And that's why I started, you know, progressing that way. And I've still want to help everybody, you know, but you just can't. I'm only one person. I can only work with so many people at a time. So I am structuring my business and fitness nutrition growth to be a team of coaches that have different, or really even the same, like even if somebody else is a mountain biking coach, like there's just because our personalities might be different, you know, you might work better with somebody than I will. So I'm an abundance thinker. Like there's room for everybody. There's enough for everybody. But I would love to see fitness nutrition growth be a team of coaches that can impact multiple types of people and all different types of people and help them achieve a healthy lifestyle.
That's really rad. I think that's really important too, because like you're saying, you may not mesh with another person. If you have a team, you have people that they can choose from. And I know you have a team member, so we'll talk about her here in a second, but it's really important to have that mix of people to help different personalities for sure. I agree with that, because it's the same in mountain biking. I may not fit with a certain client, but my friend over here will, and they'll be more successful in that direction for sure. And probably
at the end of the day,
receive more. Yeah.
At the end of the day, we all just want somebody else to have more fun on their bike, right? And if somebody else is going to be better equipped to help you do that, then that's awesome. I just want you to have fun.
Totally.
If I can help you too, that's great. That's great too. But I'm with you on that. It's just like you got to find the right person and the right match to really see that, like the sparks fly and see success.
Yeah. And they know that too. Like the clients, they know.
You feel it. We all feel it. Like even when you're not working with a coach, it's like you could be at a, you know, register checking out at the grocery store and be like, that cashier was badass. Like we vibed, you know.
We're friends now.
Yeah, we're friends now. So coaching is the same way. You gotta, yes, it's a professional relationship, but there's gotta be that personal level there too, or you're probably not gonna see that success.
Yeah, I have a group of ladies who I coach every Wednesday, and they've been wanting me to go out to lunch with them within the last year, and I keep blowing them off. I'm like, no, because I don't really want to, you know, go over the boundary of being, okay, I'm your coach, but I could be your friend too. So I finally went to lunch with them. It was kind of nice to see them outside of mountain biking and who these people really are and why they needed mountain biking. And so I felt like that was important to make that connection too. So yeah, it's really cool to see people want to hang out with you outside of like what you do as a job. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I've coached friends as well. I kind of shy away from coaching family members just because it's too close for comfort, but friends and I probably wouldn't necessarily every friend, but I tell them ahead of time, like, you know, that's fine, but you have to be okay with getting an answer from Coach Steph or friend Steph, and they're not going to give you the same answer all the time, right? So there's times where I've coached friends and I'm like, all right, do you want Coach Steph answer or do you want friend Steph answer? Because I know where you're at right now.
Well, and I think it was really nice because we met through Instagram and we both kind of reached out, and I thought that was super helpful to have you be really like to the point, hey, you're not doing this, or this is what you need to do. You know, I felt like something was missing, and it was nice to like meet you and have that, okay, do this, this, and this. And it was perfect. You need that. You can't have people beating around the bush and like telling you, oh, you'll be fine. You know, it's really good that you're very stern.
I'm very direct. Yeah, I'm not gonna like yell at you for not doing something by any means or make you feel bad, but I'm gonna let you know, like, hey, if you want to see success, this is what you have to do next week. You know, it's just it's a fact. It's not we're not bringing feelings into it. No, if they come into it, that's fine. We'll deal with it. But most of the time, it's just like, hey, this isn't. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I'm just being direct.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that.
So tell me more, now that we're on the subject of what you're doing, tell me your business. We all know it, Team FNG, is that correct? Yeah. What year you got started and who your partner is and what you're both doing in Team FNG.
Yeah. Well, I started coaching like, you know, friends and family. I feel like that's how all coaches get started. Do I like this? Let me test out the waters. In like 2018, late 2018, maybe early 2019.
Yeah.
I think I actually established my LLC in January of 2020. So that's when Fitness Nutrition Growth officially became a business. Jana came on. She's the other coach. She works with moms and especially stay-at-home moms, wants to teach moms how to keep up with their kids and set a good example for their kids. She lives in Ohio, so she's not local either. Everything we do is virtual. Okay. Yeah, everything is virtual. I am wanting to like shift a little bit more into in-person stuff with some mountain biking stuff, but I'll always keep things virtual. But I do strength and nutrition coaching specifically for mountain bikers, mostly females. I do work with men. I actually love working with men. I just market to women because it keeps the creepy dudes away. So if the dude really is serious about coaching, they'll still approach me, and I've had that happen. So it's just work for me. Yeah. Well, and it's a safe environment too. And I think if you have a woman coaching you as a woman or identifying as a woman, if you want to go in that direction, I think you feel more comfortable about the feedback, and especially if there's like personal things that are going on that you can help them with, it's more like camaraderie, and that makes sense to me too. Yeah, well, and you know, biologically we're different. We have different hormone cycles and different caloric needs and stuff like that. So there are differences there, but not, you know, those are manageable, minute at the end of the day. A lot of people mostly need help with just getting solid habits in place. And that's actually, I think you probably experienced this working with strength clients. Like people tend to overcomplicate things and think they need to do, you know, too much or everything perfectly. And it's like, really, we just need to do things consistently. It's hard. It's funny now that I'm putting strength and conditioning in my mountain biking and coaching those together. I find myself already critiquing myself in the videos and be like, oh man, like, cause you feel like you have to do it almost perfectly to let the clients know that this is how you do it. You can't half-ass it. And one of my last videos, like I've had shoulder surgery, so my rotation on my shoulder is not perfect, but you could see it in the video. And I felt like it was important to say something, you know, because people are judgmental about you as a coach. And so, but I also want people to know that I'm human too, that we all have these things that may not work out or body parts that aren't working right. And so you understand where they're coming from. So yeah, it's definitely fun mixing those two things together and seeing the result for sure. Yeah. And I think nail on the head too with that, like as a coach, we do tend, I feel like, put a lot of pressure on ourselves to show up perfectly, be perfectly. But man, I think what more clients and people need is to see the imperfection and to see that like absolutely being a coach or living a healthy lifestyle or this type of lifestyle isn't about perfection. It's like, hey, we mess up too. You know, it's actually about noticing the times you mess up or the failures and having the awareness to attempt to correct it and not to give up on correcting it, right?
Yeah.
Like your shoulder may never function the same way it did, probably won't because you had surgery on it, right?
Yeah.
But it's not giving up, and it's continuing to support that shoulder and doing the mobility work and not entering what I like to call, because that's in any category of life, mountain biking, nutrition, fitness, you go into F-It Nation and that's when you lose.
Yeah. Because you give up and then you don't see results that you want to see. It's again, that goes back to mindset too, on where you are mentally and emotionally with everything too. So yeah, it's pretty interesting when you put those things together and realize that there's like a duality of, okay, I physically need to be in the right mindset, but also emotionally need to be in the right mindset to be successful. And I like how you mentioned that there is failure. And I think failure is a good thing because you learn from those. It's not a bad thing. And I hate how we put this out there to our kids and people that we care about or people that we're working with, that failure is not an option. I don't fucking believe that. I think you have to fail, because I do every day in my life with coaching.
Yeah. I have a friend who likes to say that failure is her kink.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Like, she's like, I love failure. She's like, it's the only way that you succeed or learn. And it's so true. Mm-hmm. She actually recommended a book that I have on my list, been wanting to read, but it's called Existential Kink. Okay. And it's talking about turning, like romanticizing things like failure, essentially. Sure. Is how she explained it to me. I haven't read it, so I don't know what it's about, but that's what she said. And I'm like, that's such an interesting concept to me.
Totally.
Because mountain biking, nutrition, fitness, all of it, there is no way to go through it without failures. If you don't, like, you're not leaving your house, you're not living.
Yeah. No.
And that's a failure.
Yeah, I think that's a huge failure. The real world is out there, and it's not a conspiracy theory. You just have to go live it. And
I mean, I'm sure there's scientific data that we have that shows that exercise changes our brain and our brain chemistry, and it impacts our mood and our, how we perceive the world.
Yes.
And also same with like going through failures. I don't know if you've ever heard of the term growth mindset.
Yes.
Versus fixed mindset.
Fixed mindset.
Yeah. It's the same concept or idea. It's like, if you have this fixed idea of how things are and you have zero flexibility in your belief system, you're going to be stuck in this box. If you allow yourself to have a little bit more flexibility, accept that failures are a part of the process, you're going to see more success because you're going to continue to keep moving, and other people aren't.
There's been a couple articles I've read that have talked about fixed mindset and growth mindset just within mountain biking. And I think that helps a lot of these beginner riders. And I'm sure it helps with your clients as well, where you give them this concept of like, okay, you're afraid of this feature and you're not going to do it. But what happens if we give you the skills and change your mindset? And now you do the feature, you're growing. So it's like, you're going to be fixed mindset at one point in your mountain biking, but if you have someone give you the skills and the tools to make it happen, you're going to grow. So I think that's fun that you brought that up, because I'm always thinking about that when I'm coaching.
Well, honestly, something along those lines was really probably the biggest catalyst in my beginning of the obsession for mountain biking for me. Is I was at the old Red Bull Rampage site after Red Bull Rampage in 2021. I went to Rampage. So I was like, oh my God, this is nuts, right? And after the event, everybody went over to the old site, and my boyfriend and his friends were all jumping. And I had ridden at that point, but not like, not like
bad.
That. Wheels were not leaving the ground in any capacity, like except for when I fell. But I saw a girl that I knew, like, that lives here in Phoenix, that went with like our friend group, hitting jumps, and I was like, oh my God, that girl is so good. And my boyfriend turned to me and he goes, "That's Katie." And I was like, "Katie that I know?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh, sorry, babe, I'm never gonna be as cool as Katie." And he goes, "Well, not with that attitude." And he rode off, and I was like, he's right.
Yeah, I can.
I was like, I
It's
am
true.
one stopping me. Like,
Well, and I think you always are comparing yourself to other people, and you shouldn't. You should just be like, I'm gonna do that. And
yeah, I mean, I have mixed emotions on that. I'm actually kind of like pro comparison, but I feel like it has to be done in the right way. Like
that's true. Yeah.
comparing yourself to somebody that's been writing for 10 years and you know, trying to equate yourself with them is one thing, but looking at somebody who's been writing for 10 years and seeing it as like, oh, that's possible.
Totally.
I could do that, is a different type of comparison. And
I like that.
I'm very externally motivated by seeing like what's possible. Like I love Strava for that reason, because I'll hit a segment and I'm like, man, I was flying. And then I'll look and I'm like, that bitch went a minute faster than me. Like, ow. Like, so it just helps me like get outside of the limits I place on myself, I think.
Totally. Strava's hard for me. I actually turned it off because I was starting to compare myself too much and it becomes very competitive. And you're like, okay, no, I'm turning this off.
Yeah, I think there's definitely like limits to it. And you have to be really self-aware of your own, how you're feeling, how it impacts you, and like how you are motivated. But that is one of the ways that I know I'm motivated. So I'm going to use that to my advantage.
I like that perspective. You're the first person that has recoiled that and said, hey, no, I like Strava because of that. So that's cool. I like that. That's cool.
Yeah, and for myself too, and not even against other people, but like I can see, okay, 2 years ago, I got like 10 minutes off of that segment. Like, so it's really cool to see your own progress as well, not necessarily just with other people, but like being competitive with yourself too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's important to have some comparisons. I agree after listening to you. I think as women, we kind of over compare. And I think that's what makes it difficult to, how do I say this, to better ourselves. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think you're right. I think it's okay to compare yourself to other people as long as you're using it in the right way or the right.
Yeah, it's like, where's the root of that comparison? Is it coming from shame or guilt or
but you
jealousy?
Want to be better? Yeah.
Or is it coming from like, oh damn, the possibility, or like maybe I could do that, or like maybe I don't want to do that even too. Like just, you know, having the awareness to work within your own goals and like be okay with your own goals too. I think that is something that I hear people say in mountain biking. Like I saw a post the other day that was, somebody said, I feel like I'm forever going to be a strong beginner. And I'm like, well, there's a duality to that for me. Like part of it's like, is that where you want to be? Like
totally. Yeah.
Is that genuinely where you want to be? Or are you looking at people riding double black diamonds and thinking, I don't want to ride that, but then feeling like guilty or shameful for not riding that? Like, nah, just be okay with riding what you want to ride is the first half of that. And then the other half is, if you do want to ride that, that's where you have to be okay with like pushing past fears, because people don't do that stuff not scared.
No. Yeah. Oh no, there's some fear always.
Yeah, like, there is, even when you know you can do something. Even when every single time I go out on a ride by myself, I have a certain level of fear.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it's healthy fear.
Correct. Yeah. I'm just saying, it's like, you know, there is a duality of like, either accept where you want to be or be willing to know, like, I have to push through some things to get to that next level. And it's okay if you don't want to do that. That's fine.
Yeah.
Just, you know, being aware of what you want and how to get to where you want, if that is something you want to do.
Totally. That's a good point. I think a lot of the women that I coach are stuck in that mentality. They're okay with being where they're at. But when they finally come to a clinic, and because their friend has dragged them along to participate, they realize that they are good enough. And if they put the work in, that they're going to be progressive in their sport. Even if they stay in intermediate, they don't want to jump, they don't want to do drops, they can still be good and skilled at what trails they're riding and feel confident. Like, yeah.
Well, and also like, your goals might change. Kind of like I said, when I first started writing, I would see stuff my boyfriend writing and I'm like, I don't ever even want to do that. Like, how would somebody even have the desire to do that? You'd have to be insane. And now I'm like, I could ride that, So it's like your perspective will probably change too as you progress with your writing. And by no means am I encouraging somebody to just go do something they don't have the skills to do. Just because you need to push past your fear. Like, that's not what I'm saying either. But
use that fear.
just send it. Just pull up, go fast.
Hey, just go really fast. Yeah.
Pull up and lean back.
Yeah, that's funny. That's hilarious. Yeah. No, it's having a good fear of what you're doing. Always. I'm always, there are features that I'm scared to coach on sometimes, but I know I can do it. It's just that fear of being that prancing pony and trying to be perfect. And I think it's okay to feel those feelings and show women that you're in the same boat. I mean, I have a story for you later again, but yeah, same. I love it. I love that we can all learn something from each other and know that it's okay to have failures and fear, for sure.
Yeah, I think we just live in such an age where we have instant gratification and people see seems like overnight success, and you really don't see the work that people are putting into, and that affects people's mentality towards progress and stuff as well. So just like realize people work their asses off. They spent hours doing skills before they started doing other things, and they're training and they're eating right and they're, what I mean? It's multifaceted. It's not just one thing.
No, it's not. Yeah. Speaking of nutrition, what are some of the qualifications do you have to have in your company in order to keep it rolling? And what qualifications do you have in your business?
Yeah. So any coach that is doing strength training, programming, or coaching is going to have some type of personal trainer certification. I'm not big on which one. I think they're all quality certifications.
Sure.
I myself have a NASM certification. I believe Jana has ISSA. And then any coach who's going to be doing specific nutrition coaching would need some type of nutrition certification. I have my precision nutrition certification.
Okay.
Jana doesn't have any nutrition certification. So when she does have a client who's getting nutrition coaching outside of, I'll help her set the macros and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And outside of the coaching aspects, if they need questions or support or resources, I'm there as a resource for her to back her up and help her clients as well.
Yeah.
And then obviously my nursing degree,
which is cool. That's a plus.
But surprisingly, you don't get a ton of nutrition. I had a nutrition class in college, but
yeah. Well, I think
not what you think that doctors and nurses should have, honestly.
Well, yeah, I feel like those are extra steps or certifications that you should take. Learning your macros, which are carbs, fats, proteins, is actually very scientific. And for me, it was really hard to learn at first because there's a lot that goes into it for each individual person. How do you help mountain bikers? I know, like I said, each person is specific and unique. How do you help the general people that come to you and are like, hey, I need this amount of food? How do you help them get the right nutrition advice in this fast-paced world? Yeah,
like you said, everything is person by person. If you ever come across a coach, I will say in any capacity, strength training, nutrition, that gives out just black and white, this is the only way it is, answers for nutrition questions.
Sure.
That's a red flag because their nutrition is incredibly nuanced. But that being said, I always start by having my clients assessing where my clients are when they start working with me. I think that it's awesome to have a goal and an end goal, but
Totally.
if you were going to Target, or if you, let's say you were like visiting your friend in Chicago and you wanted to go to Target and you text her and you're like, hey, how do I get to Target? She'd be like, well, where are you?
Yeah.
You can't give somebody directions
Yeah.
to a place or to a goal if you don't know where they're starting at.
Absolutely.
So always getting that solid starting point and then creating like the appropriate steps and goals. You know, macros may not be the first step for everybody. There are habit-based things that we can put in place ahead of macros. Like if you're already struggling to get servings of fruits and veggies in each day, if you're struggling to drink enough water, those are things that we're going to focus on before I'm like, hey, you need to hit these calorie and macro goals, which also isn't for everybody too.
Right.
And really should be approached as a learning experience and as a tool more than some, like counting macros isn't something you should have to do for the rest of your life.
No, it's a pain in the butt. Like,
well, it gets easier as you do it too. And I go through phases. Like right now, I'm actually tracking for the first time in probably 3 or 4 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Just because I had my leg that I broke. I lost so much muscle in my leg.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about
that I wanted to build that muscle back up. So I intentionally went into a calorie surplus. I gained a little bit more weight than I typically am comfortable walking around at, but I've been lifting really hard and working hard to build that muscle back on. And I feel like I've done that. So now I'm at a point where I'd like to get that extra weight that I gained off. So I know that I need to be a little bit more strict about how I'm approaching that in order to achieve that goal. So that's why I'm tracking. But other than that, I haven't for years.
I know, and I haven't either. I just started as well. That's why it's like hard for me because it's still a learning process for myself. But I forgot what I was gonna say. Question. I was gonna say it's hard to learn how to track that, like get back into the habit of doing those things, like getting your little notebook out and be like, okay, this is what I'm eating today, and food prepping and all that stuff. How do you help people who are getting back into it or just starting in your business or in your fitness routine? How do you help them get into that good habit of being consistent and feeling like they're motivated enough to do it on a daily?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I always tell people is that motivation is a lie. You're never going to be consistent. Creating a healthy lifestyle is about doing it on the days you don't want to. And about just kind of sucking it up and getting it done, right? Coaching is about having that accountability of somebody, somebody else is going to be looking, like, did I check off that goal? So I think that's a big thing for most people is just knowing somebody else's eyes are going to be on it. It's kind of like the concept of having, what's that thing they're doing for ADHD people nowadays? They're having like somebody sit in the room with them so they work. People are paying somebody to sit in a room. I work worse when people are around me, but
I would be annoyed.
I would be like, what are you doing? I want to hang out with you. I actually start talking to you.
Yeah.
But it's the same concept. Some people really operate a lot better when they have somebody else holding them accountable. So that is a part of it. And then also it kind of happens naturally because once people start implementing those habits, they start feeling better.
Yeah.
Or they are like, oh, I had more energy on my ride. I didn't bonk. I'm sleeping better. They start noticing the benefits.
Totally.
And that in itself lends to a little bit of motivation. But really just kind of, it comes down to a decision that you make with yourself, whereas like these are the non-negotiable things that I'm going to implement and I'm going to set boundaries around them to maintain that. And knowing that like, okay, if I drop it, I'll pick it back up. Just like if I accidentally drop my phone, I'm not going to walk away and leave it on the sidewalk. So if you drop your habit, pick it back up and keep walking. Like,
I love
not
that
entering that effort nation.
Yeah. Keep going. Keep working hard.
Just keep trying.
Yeah, trying. I like that. Yeah, there's no hurt in trying. You just keep going for it. And if you fail, just keep going. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then the other half of it is helping people get systems in place and helping people figure out their systems, because there's different types of meal prepping, especially when it comes to like nutrition.
Yeah.
Some people don't like leftovers. Some people don't like eating the same thing.